my name is Stephanie Soto. I'm the Assistant Director of Testing and Academic Success in the Tutoring and Testing Center.
Hey guys, my name is Erica. I'm a senior at NSU and I work at the TTC.
Today we're going to be talking about the GRE and how to prepare for the exam. And Erica recently took the GRE, so she's going to be a really good person to answer all of your questions about what test day is really like. All right, so today we'll give a quick overview of the exam, and then we'll jump right into some study strategies for each of the individual sections, as well as general study strategies, and then talk about what to expect test day. So a lot of graduate schools are requiring the GRE. And the GRE is really meant to measure your verbal reasoning skills, your quantitative reasoning skills, critical thinking, and your writing skills. So the skills necessary to be successful in graduate school. The exam is a little over $200, so that is something to kind of think about and plan ahead for. The GRE is about 3 hours and 45 minutes. There are 6 sections with a 10-minute break following the 3rd section. So you have your analytical writing, which is 1 section, but it's 2 separately timed tasks. And we're going to go a little bit more into detail in a minute, but it's 30 minutes per task. Then you have your verbal reasoning, 20 questions, 30 minutes per section. And then your quantitative reasoning, which is your math, 20 questions, 35 minutes. Additionally, there is 1 unscored or research section, which will be either the verbal or the quantitative reasoning.
It could seem a little daunting at first, but once you start going with throughout the sections and everything, it actually does not feel like 30 minutes, it feels like 5. So just because you're so focused and so immersed in it, so don't get overwhelmed by just hearing the times of everything, because you guys do have time, especially with practice.
So with the analytical writing, there's actually 2 different tasks. There's one where you analyze an issue, where it'll have an unbiased issue, and you kind of have to develop an argument with reasoning, with examples to kind of support your views. Then there's analyze an argument. So this will be a biased opinion, and you have either agree or disagree with the position that it presents. So Erica, when it came to this section in particular, how did you prepare for it?
So what I did for this section, writing for me personally is a strong suit. So I didn't focus on it as much as I did for the math and verbal reasoning. But when I did focus on this, what I did is I did practice prompts. So actually GRE provides you all the prompts that you could get on the exam. And while that sounds amazing, there's 150 of them. So it's very unreasonable to prepare for 150. So all you have to do is just be able to kind of understand a breakdown or an outline that you can make for yourself, because you do have a planning period before you actually start writing. And so that planning period takes, I think, 2 minutes, or you have to manage your time and you have that planning period within your 30-minute slot. What I did is I used GregMat, which I will talk about more later when we talk about study tips and everything. And GregMat gave me a really good way to outline everything and kind of manage my time within those 30 minutes of that planning period. Then 2 minutes after that, being able to write everything, and then my rereading period, and to just go over all my work. So I just practiced that consistently. For the issue and the argument, I probably did 2 a day. And then after that, I felt pretty confident in it.
The next section is your verbal reasoning. So there is actually 2 of these verbal reasoning sections, and it's going to be 3 types of questions: your reading comprehension, text completion, and then sentence equivalence. So for this section, Erica, how did you prepare for it?
So I bought the GRE book by ETS. And they gave a bunch of practice tests and a bunch of different practice sections that range from easy to hard questions. And I just kind of practiced those repeatedly. And there's an app that you could do. It's called, I think, Magoosh it's called, and you can do a question every day. And that's a good way to practice. So I did that. I took the exam last August. So I started doing that starting in June. And I just like kind of kept going with that almost every day. I would do at least one question. But for each one, reading comprehension for me wasn't something that I had trouble with, so I didn't focus on that. But this text completion and sentence equivalence is something I did struggle with. So I just like found different strategies using either Magoosh or GregMat and then put them to my own personal like needs and like kind of changed it to my kind of like how I view things, and it helped a lot.
For the reading comprehension, really people's biggest issue with these type of questions is just time management. So timing yourself when you're doing these practice questions. The next two sections are the quantitative reasoning. It doesn't go in this order. It can mix and match, but your math is your quantitative reasoning. So it's going to be arithmetic, algebra, geometry, data analysis. So Erica, how did you prepare for this section?
So something that's really good about the GRE is that you can skip around in your questions. So for the quantitative reasoning specifically, it goes in a specific order of types of questions. So it's kind of hard to explain how those questions go right now in like 30 seconds. But in that order, I would go out of order and I would do like the questions that I knew I could do in like 30 seconds first. And then I would skip the ones where if I spent more than a minute on it, I skipped it. And I went to do the ones that I know that I could get the points for, and then came back to those other questions near the end of that 30-minute or 35-minute period. So for example, like I'm pretty strong in algebra. So all the algebra questions, I was able to like do all that. Geometry is not personally my friend. So I skipped the geometry ones and then I went back to them just so that you can get the most amount of points. Because for the GRE, they count how many you get right. They don't mark off how many you get wrong.
And there is one unscored or research section. So it's important not to try to guess which one it is. Just try your best on each of the unscored or each of your sections. So Erica, could you tell which one was the unscored or research section?
I had no idea. So I just kind of like put my effort into all of it. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna, you're not supposed to assume because you don't know which one it's going to be. It could be really easy or it could be really hard. But don't let that freak you out. Also, just kind of pretend that it's still part of the test that is going to be scored. That gave me a peace of mind. So yeah, that's my best advice I can give you guys with that. But you guys don't know which one it is.
Yeah, and there are these hacks online. Don't buy into the hacks. Just don't guess. Just try your best on all of the sections. All right, so some general study strategies. Erica, do you have any that you want to start with that you'd recommend?
So I took mine again over the summer, and I'm from New York, so it's usually cold over there, but during the summer it's really hot. So I really liked going outside and like sitting outside and studying there because it was very peaceful and it was like kind of distraction free in a sense. So I would definitely like consider studying in places that give you like that calmness. Like don't study somewhere that's like chaotic or anything, because you're going to need to really focus on these questions, because these aren't questions that you can just like do while you have like a lot going on, because they do involve a lot of like thinking and interpreting and analyzing. So I do recommend that. Also, I would, again, I've mentioned them a bunch of times and I feel like it's like an ad almost, but it's not. GregMat and Magoosh have helped me immensely because they've had great like advice for me. And like I said earlier, I've just kind of fixed it to what it like to where it's like more focused towards me and my needs and my goals. So I really do recommend that.
When you are doing practice questions, like Erica mentioned, those sections will go by really fast. It'll feel like 5 minutes. So when you're doing those practice questions, make sure you're timing yourself so that you're not spending too much time on a question, that you're just kind of, let's skip it and come back later. And that'll help you find the rhythm when test day comes. Highly recommend to find a study partner. If you don't study in groups well, just find someone that will, basically you can keep each other accountable. Use your downtime for quick study sessions. So when you are waiting, maybe in line or waiting for class to start, bring some practice questions, bring your flashcards with you and use that as quick study sessions.
So also I put the apps in the chat. 2 of them, actually, Vocabulary Builder and the Vocabulary flashcards, are literally an app you can go on your phone and you can like do like it's like a game. So like you don't really think you're studying, but like you are. And you just like kind of do that, and it's really quick. And if you do that, like, well, she said, like waiting online, a shuttle, the doctor's office, anything like that, that's literally what I did. I did exactly that. And whatever free time that I had, I just used those apps, and it helped a lot.
And then definitely capitalize on your learning style. So it's all about, like frequent quizzing, frequent practice questions to kind of get you used to how the questions will look test day. I do recommend to build a weekly schedule, study schedule, where you have specific time set aside each week where you will study for the GRE and not be interrupted by anything else. So it's recommended to do it every single week and to adhere to that regular schedule. And then the average study time that people take to prepare for the GRE is about 10 hours per week for up to 3 months. So that's just kind of something to start to think about. I know you're balancing a lot of other things on your schedule. So if you need help building that study schedule, highly recommend to set up an academic success coaching appointment through your Navigate. So we have 5 academic success coaches right now that will help you either build that schedule or set goals for yourself to make sure that you are being accountable and that you're being successful in your test prep. Finding resources is a huge part of the test prep. So Erica, how did you kind of go about finding the right resources for you?
So for me personally, I had a few friends that took the GRE, so I asked what resources they use. Also, I benefit a little bit by working at the TTC, so I used Stephanie to my advantage. And I said, hey, what can I do for this? And so she told me that the TTC, that they offer mock exams. So I was like, okay, cool. That is something that we can do. I also looked at books. I personally bought my own book on Amazon, as well as like flashcards. I also bought those. But you could also like get them at the TTC and like see like and compare like the books that you have or anything like that. I just bought mine personally because I wrote in them, and I left myself like little notes and everything like that. So that's just what worked for me. But yeah, I kind of just like asked around like what people thought they found beneficial when they took the exam. And then I also just kind of looked online as well to see like what's the best way to prep for the GRE.
So we do have a lending library in the tutoring and testing center. So if you are looking for a study guide or unsure which one to purchase, you can stop by the testing services front desk and kind of see what we have available. Or if you're just looking for some extra practice questions as it's getting closer to test day, definitely stop by. And we actually do have flashcards you can borrow for in-house. So if you have a free hour and you want to stop by and kind of study some flashcards, absolutely do that. And then Khan Academy partnered with ETS to create practice questions for free on their website. So go on to the Khan Academy and you can look up under their test prep section, the GRE, and it's built out by section. And then ETS has the Power Prep available on their website, which is the practice exams and the practice prompts that Erica mentioned. So mock exams are a really big part of test prep. So I highly recommend to do a diagnostic early in your studies. So set aside maybe a Saturday, or if you know you have a free morning or a free afternoon, a free 4 hours basically, and take a practice exam and kind of see where you're at with the material so that you'll know where do you need to be spending your study time. And it'll give you really good initial feedback. And then after each practice exam that you do, a lot of times they'll break down each question, give you like an explanation of why that's correct. So make sure that you're reviewing your responses, the ones that you were unsure about, as well as the ones you got incorrect, and really looking close at those explanations. Do you think those helped you, Erica?
Yeah, so mock exams were like my besties at the time. Like I always did mock exams throughout my study period. I studied for about 3 months. So a little bit of going back to what Stephanie said about the scheduling. I took that practice exam and then I made myself a schedule, and I saw what were my weakest points. So during my first exam, I saw that the verbal reasoning and was my weakest. So I said, okay, I'm going to focus on that for X amount of weeks or X amount of like hours. Obviously, still putting in the time to practice that analytical writing and the quantitative reasoning portion. And then I took another exam by the end of the month. And then I was able to find out like where I improved, where I didn't improve, or if I stayed consistent and what I could change within my study skill or my study tips or my study ideas, skills, to kind of change them to make sure that I do get the higher score for the next practice exam that I take. So I kind of took one, like, if I remember correctly, I took one every 3 weeks. So I did that, and I took it at like the most random times. I didn't really have a set schedule for that, to be completely honest with you, but whatever worked for me, because I worked too when I did that. So like I probably did it before work, and then I took like a 2-hour break, and then I went to work, and then, or I did it during the weekend after whatever I had to do with my family. And yeah.
The exam, it is 4 hours, so that's a long time to kind of sit and focus. So full length exams are really important, especially closer to the exam date, because you need to make sure you're building up that endurance to be able to actually sit through a 4-hour exam and give your best effort. So very important. We do recommend to take one in the TTC. So we have both a small lab or private rooms, and you can just call to reserve your time and take that full length exam. We have lockers to lock up your cell phone so you're not distracted, and you just do it all the way through and kind of get that full testing experience.
So I really recommend taking the mock exam at the TTC because they give you similar testing conditions as if you would go to like the real GRE at a whatever testing center that you go to. I remember when I went, I was kind of like taken aback just because, again, I took mine over the summer, so I didn't have the TTC to my advantage. And so I was just like in a little like gray room that was just like a bunch of computers and a bunch of like kids with headphones so that like you don't hear anything and everything like that. And it was kind of intimidating at first, but once you start taking the exam, then you're kind of like, oh, like I'm in my own little bubble. I'm going to do what I have to do. But I feel like if I took a mock exam at the TTC with similar conditions, then I wouldn't have been so like taken aback at first.
Make sure you're understanding what the question is asking. So don't rush through those question stems. Tackle questions in the order that you want. I think Erica mentioned that you could mark the questions and come back later. So is that pretty easy to use on their system?
Yeah, so actually also with like those practice exams, if you do it through the ETS, I believe they give you like 1 or 2 for free that you guys could just take on their website, and it's set up exactly how it would the real GRE. So even if you need to like play with the buttons, it's a great time to be able to like figure out what to do, but it's pretty straightforward. You like click like a question button, or you can like literally mark it, and it tells you if you answered the question or if you didn't answer the question. So I took advantage of that. That little thing was like open all the time for me when I was taking the exam, because I think it's really beneficial for you to bounce around and not focus so much of your time on one question when you could have focused your time on like 5 other questions that you know how to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, so in addition to preparing for the exam, studying, make sure that you are also taking care of yourself. So sleep is really important for memory retention. So make sure that you're getting full night's sleep, especially leading up to the exam. Make sure that you're not staying up all night long trying to prepare or cram for an exam or try to learn all these vocab words, because it's just not going to stick. And it's more important to take care of yourself to have a good night's sleep. Poor eating habits can lead to fatigue, so make sure that you eat before going into the exam, that you're eating well leading up to the exam, and then that you're taking breaks while you're studying. So we recommend every 50 to 60 minutes, plan to take about a 10 to 15 minute break early in your studies. And as you go through, you're going to build up that endurance, and it's going to be a little bit longer at a time before you'll need to take a break. But you need those kind of mental breaks. It gets a little overwhelming, very stressful when you are preparing for this exam while being a student, while being involved on campus or working.
Yeah, that's why earlier I told you guys like I really recommend like studying outside if you can, just because like a change of environment really helps, especially if you're somebody who likes to study in their room. I like wasn't able to focus in my room anymore because I was in there for so long studying for this exam. And then once I was able to change that scenery, everything just like felt better and I felt like a little bit more relaxed and I felt like refreshed almost. So I definitely recommend that. And I really am big on like the eating part. Just make sure that you're eating like after you study because food is fuel. So if you eat, then that means you'll be able to memorize things better. You'll be able to be up better. You'll be able to um, kind of like take in the information and do well with it instead of like struggle and just be like ending up being mad at yourself because you end up like just simply as not eating.
All right, so Erica, can you talk about your test day experience, the whole thing?
Yes. So you're able to like pick what time you want to take your exam. So knowing that I am not a morning person, I did not choose the 8 a.m. slot. I took my exam at 12 p.m. And I remember I woke up semi early that day. I kind of did like my usual morning routine and I did not look at a book. I was not going to like stress myself out because I knew whatever I read now, it's not going to help me on the exam later. So I studied the day before. I took a really good, like, I slept very well, ate breakfast. Again, super big. Please eat breakfast, drink whatever coffee you need to drink, or your orange juice, or even water. Like, do any of that. Um, and then I left about like an hour early because I still didn't know where the location, like the testing location was. And thank God I did because I got lost for like 10 minutes. I remember not being able to find it. So I do recommend like trying to find it either like a few days before or go on Google Maps and make sure that you know like what's going on like on that map instead of just kind of guessing. And then also, so then when I got there, I found like the place and it was like a really quiet place. And they ask you like it's a strict testing like location. This is for at least in person. They asked me to like take off my jewelry, like they asked me to put my bags in a locker, like everything like that. Like I wasn't even allowed to bring my own pen. Like they provide you a pen and everything. And then they ask you like a series of questions to make sure that you're not cheating. And then after that is when you go into the room and then they're just like, good luck. Like, let us know when the 10-minute break is going. And I was like, okay, great, thanks. So then I did exactly that. So that's kind of how the test day was. And then as soon I was done with it, I felt tired and I remember eating and kind of just like celebrating the fact that I took such a big exam. So make sure also that when you finish the exam, celebrate yourself because you just did something amazing. You did something so hard that you worked for or worked so hard for. So make sure you also do that. But yeah, that was my overall test day.
Perfect. So the GRE is also offered at the at-home version, which is virtually proctored. So all of the information for that is online, but it's a real person that'll be watching you through your camera the entirety of your exam, and it's through a company called ProctorU. It's available 7 days a week. It does talk about the equipment that you need for your computer system as well as your camera on their website. So make sure you view that ahead of time. But at the start of the exam, you'll do kind of an equipment check, and then the proctor will start talking to you and will verify your identity. They go through a lot of rules. And it's going to be very similar to testing in a testing center. So no jewelry, no headbands, no masks. You do have to be dressed appropriately. And then if at any point during the exam they have a question, they stop your exam manually and will ask you, can you move this? Can you show me this? Okay, so mindset is really important for test day. So it's very important that you're thinking positively, that you have positive self-talk because it really can increase your confidence and it really can help you better manage your stress for the exam. So did you do anything like this, Erica?
Yeah, actually a lot. I definitely celebrated the small victories whenever I had them. So, for example, let's say that I was struggling with verbal reasoning, right? I was struggling to get above a 150 personally. And I remember that when I finally did like one like section where I was able to get like above a 150, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna stop studying for like an hour. I'm gonna go like I think I got like some sort of I think food. I don't know. I got food from somewhere. And I like just celebrated it. And I was just like, okay, like you totally like deserved this. Like this is amazing that you did that. Like good for you, like awesome. And I kind of kept like celebrating like that and like little way like when I managed like or when I reached, excuse me, my little goals like that. Also like I had a really good support system, luckily, with me. Like my parents were like really big and they always were like super motivating with me and stuff. And I remember like even my best friend, like I verbalized to her just like my struggles and everything. And she always like tried to keep me going, always like gave me like a positive mindset and everything like that. So it's really also beneficial to have that good support system. And for like the negative self-talk type of things, like that's, I feel like almost inevitable, but it's super easy or super feasible, better to say, to try to change that from negative to positive and be able to kind of motivate yourself so that you can do well. Because at the end of the day, this is to get into a school that will provide you with your dream job, whatever that may be. So that's something that I really emphasize a lot.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. All right, so leading to the scoring, which is so important. Before you even go into the GRE prep, you should kind of have an idea of what you want your score to look like. So if you are interested in a certain graduate program or a certain school, start looking up to see what are their average admission scores. And is it per section? Is it like only for the verbal that they care about? Do they super score? All of those things are different for each and every graduate program. So make sure you have that in mind ahead of time. But basically after your test day, I think, let me see how long it takes, 10 to 15 days, so wait, about 2 weeks, you'll receive your score on the ETS website. Do you think your practice exams kind of aligned with your ending score?
Yeah, for sure. So the scoring is kind of, it's a little bit different for every exam, but how I found a way to properly like gauge my scoring is that, so there's about 20 or so questions per section. And so I kind of counted like how many I got right. So starting at like 130 to like that 170. If I got 100, like I got all of them right, it's like a 170. So like if I got like 13 right, then I would have gotten like a 143 on like the math, for example. And that was like a really good gauge for me to kind of like figure out what my score was going to be. And it was pretty accurate as well with that kind of scoring, but not every test is exactly like that question is 1 point, what like and whatnot. Like some do value differently. But again, that was like a good gauge. And also, when I was at the testing center, they actually gave me my verbal and my quantitative scores like right away on the screen. So the only thing I really had to wait for was that like official score report so I could send it to schools. But you also get, I believe, a few, like whatever schools that you can put in that you want to send them to immediately, those are free. I knew at the time there was like a few schools that I wanted to apply to that I knew about. So I just, all you have to do, if they ask you, do you want to send like your scores like to like certain schools? And those are for free. If you don't do it then you do have to pay per school later, like whenever you want to do it, once you get that official score report. But I remember I just typed in like, for example, like I sent mine to Nova. So I was like, Nova Southeastern University, and it came up and like their school code came up and everything. So I clicked that and then they sent it to Nova automatically and I didn't have to pay for any of it. But like I said, I believe it's $20 per school that you send it to after that. So just keep in mind what schools you do want to apply to so you can just kind of do it in one shot.
So what questions do you have about the GRE that we can answer today?